Okay, welcome to Newcastle. For those of you who are locals, you'll recognise this view. For those of you who are out of town, I recommend you check it out tonight. This is Anzac Walk up on our headland. You'll see from the hashtags there, I tend to run a few different identities. I am with you, but I am not of you. I'm an occupational therapist, so I've been able to keep up with most of what you've been doing today, but some still goes a little bit over. But I do have a natural curiosity for technology and what it does for us. So, as we go through the slide deck now, I'll give a quick mea culpa. I'm in the middle of running the preparation for our urban IoT hack, which kicks off Thursday night. Some of the other hats that I do tend to wear, though, are that I'm still doing a PhD by research, raising 3 kids and trying to run a day job. Assemblyant is our company, so we've been happy to be one of the sponsors for the event. But the work that I'm focusing on is what are the implications of healthcare for emergent technologies like AI? And I wanted to talk a little bit today about the emergence of digital humans. So if we think that a chatbot is a unique and novel channel, be prepared for what's coming next. These are a much higher resolution experience. And you can imagine the sort of data intensity that's going to sit and underpin this. So these are sort of trainable AIs that are being used for new user experience, customer experience, and employee experience. So I wanted to dig a little bit deeper and understand what are some of the implications for DevOps around those conversational analytics. At the core of it, we still have innately human responses. This is a great little snapshot from Rose Powell and her experience of the Google Home speaker. So didn't quite respond the way she wanted to, so she's yelled at it. It's a very natural human experience, and now she feels terrible. Keep in mind, though, that with the emergence of these sorts of channels and interfaces, we're going to see changes in the legal landscape that sits around it. So the Turing Institute in the UK have been doing some really fascinating work about trying to work out how you can dig into an AI and the machine learning model that sits behind it to be able to do counterfactual arguments and work out how an AI has come up with its recommendation for a particular form of action. Now, naturally, when you start to think about the implications of that in healthcare, where we're trying to influence behaviour change to lead to particular outcomes, that starts to become something that is of forensic interest. If we get something wrong that leads to an incorrect recommendation, something adverse happens, how do we protect ourselves? So Sandra Wachter, who you'll see mentioned there on the slide, is leading a lot of that work at the Turing Institute. So we know that the insurers use a lot of inferential analytics. There's a big data mine, a big set of data there to be able to mine and work out what we do with it. But UX is always going to tap into these really primitive, hardwired neural pathways. As an OT, I do a lot of work in neuroplasticity and understanding how we communicate, how our forms of communication are disrupted. When we go into a conversational interface, we're talking about something that's very high fidelity, highly fluid, and we've got to be able to design our DevOps infrastructure for being able to cope with much faster iteration loops. So when I start to dig a little bit deeper into it, there's some natural questions that come up. So how do you design your DevOps and code base for forensic inquiry and some of that investigation? How do you design in a way that's going to protect your IP but still allow for your presence to be interrogated, to be able to check and see if an algorithm is going to give you the results that you need? And the answer is really carefully and deliberatively, unless you're a startup. And then it just gets wickedly hard. Similarly, if you're using a machine learning training data set, this becomes a new threat vector. So how are you going to be able to design each of your interactions to be able to protect that training data set? The final element for me is thinking about the ethical challenges. With great power comes great responsibility. So as designers, makers and sustainers, how well do we understand and embed the ethics that we have and our duty of care, and do our DevOps practices and patterns support that? Do they enable it? Different project environments that I've worked in, we'd probably say, perhaps not enough. Is always going to be that execution of speed versus quality versus cost and the trade-offs that are in there, unless you're operating in a regulated market like health tech, fintech. Now, my skin's in this game too, so I'm here to learn, I'm here to listen, part of the work that I'm doing is with CleanMate, which is supporting people with alcohol and drug addiction dependency issues and getting them back into a functional state. There's a last slide here which I've got for behaviour change support and some of the models that we use for it. The humanbehaviourchange.org website is well worth taking a look at for understanding some of the patterns that we have to be able to tap into. And my final call, my final request is if you see something that you love about Newcastle, we've got a little Newy Dex hashed that we'd love to be able to see what your experience is and try and surface your experience of Newcastle if this is your first time here. Thank you so much.
Cool, thank you, Brian.